So I guess we'll get started.
Okay.
Okay, welcome. I'm Chris McDermott. I'm Director of First Year Enrollment, and I couldn't be happier that you guys are joining us this evening. I know it's beautiful out, so I know you all must be interested in learning a little bit more about financial aid. So as we're waiting, I'm going to go over some housekeeping things with you. And one of the things I'm going to ask you to do is to mute your microphone, so this way we don't get any excess noise in the background. And I'm also going to ask that you type in the chat window your name, your high school, and your year of graduation, because we have a number of different students joining us. And if there's a parent joining us, I would respectfully ask that they type in that for their students, so we would know that student as well. Also, by using the chat feature later on in this program, we're going to have a question and answer session. So we're going to ask that you think of any admissions or financial aid questions that you might want to ask. Mark Stewart is our host tonight, so he's going to be reviewing those questions and then later on sending them to Katie and me to answer, or he might jump in and answer some too. You never can tell what the questions are going to bring. So with that being said, we would hope that you would start typing in any questions that you might have so we can move that along. And then without further ado, I'm going to present Katie Kosis to you, our Director of Financial Aid, and she can begin moving along with her presentation. Take it away, Katie.
Thanks, Chris. Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Kosis. I am the Director of Financial Aid here at University. This session tonight is mainly for juniors who will be seniors the upcoming year. We're going to go over how to file the FAFSA, the information you're going to need for that, scholarships, the different aid available. If you're a senior on the line, not a problem. If you still have questions for us, we'll get to those at the end for sure. But the majority of this program is going to be as if you were a junior student. So I'm going to share my screen so we can keep going. And okay. All right, so there's my information up on the screen right now. That's the number for the main financial aid line, my email, and then our general email for the financial aid office. If you have any questions after this is over, feel free to give us a call or email us. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Tonight we're going to talk about completing the FAFSA form, the types of financial aid, scholarships in general, and then Q&A. So for the FAFSA, for getting started, so the first thing you're going to need to do is to apply for your FSA ID. You can do that at the website there, fsaid.ed.gov. This is like pretty much your electronic signature for the FAFSA. So as a student, you will need your own, and then one of your parents will, at least one of your parents will need to create their own as well. Be sure when you're completing this that you use separate email addresses, one for the student and one for the parent. You can't use the same one. If you try to do it, you will create a havoc, honestly. So make sure you use separate ones. This is when you go to the website, this is what you will see. I'm telling you that you are able to start to create your FSA ID. Anytime. You don't have to do that right, before you're filing your FAFSA or as you're doing it. You can definitely do it, a month or two in advance, just so that you have that all set. So some of the information that you will need in order to complete your FAFSA, so after you have your FSA ID, and then before you go fill out your FAFSA, this is what the main information you're going to need in order to be able to fill it out. Basic information about students and parents, social security numbers, date of birth, those types of things will be needed for both parents and students. Tax information. So if you are a junior right now and we'll be filling out the 2021-22 FAFSA form, which sounds a long way away, but it's really not. And you'll be using 2019 tax information. So by then, your taxes will be done and you'll be able to use that information. Now, if you're a current senior on the line, you will be, and you haven't filed your FAFSA yet, you'll be using 2018 tax information to fill out the 2021 FAFSA. In addition to the tax information, you will also need to provide information about assets. This is cash, savings, checking accounts, investments, stocks, bonds, those types of things. You both for parents and students, you will need to answer those as well. And then also the FAFSA is going to ask how many are in your household. So this would include your parents, any siblings you might have, and then how many are in college during the 2021-22 year. This would be yourself and any other siblings. If your parents happen to be in college at the same time, they unfortunately are not able to be counted on your FAFSA. It's just yourself and then any other siblings that would be counted as part of that in college number. So it's a good idea to kind of gather all this information together before you sit down and actually complete the FAFSA form. A question I get asked a lot is, okay, which parent do I report? My parents are divorced. Who do I report on that? So if your parents are divorced, you would report whoever you as a student lives with more than 50% of the year during the prior 12 months. So if you live with dad, 9 months out of the year, you would report dad's income. Keep in mind that if dad is remarried, you also have to report stepmom's income as well. That is for either or, whichever parent you live with. If for some reason you happen to be live 50-50, although there's 365 days in the year, so really not supposed to be equal, but if for some reason it is equal, then you would report whichever parent provides the most financial support in the previous 12 months. Also, sometimes both parents are living together, but they're not married. That's fine. You would still report both incomes on the FAFSA. So once you go onto the FAFSA website, which I think I forgot to put that on here, I'm so sorry, but it's just studentaid.ed.gov. So it's studentaid.ed.gov. You just go on there, and this is what you'll see once you click on the FAFSA section. If you have never completed a FAFSA form before today, you'd go to start here, new to the FAFSA process, user, then you would log in. And once you go to that login screen, either if you're the student, you're going to, if you're the parent, the only difference is that it will make a difference in how the questions are presented to you. So if you log in as a student, it's going to say, what is your income? Versus when it's the parent, it's say, what is your student's income? Now, something we recommend to do, and this is an option, is to use the IRS data retrieval tool. What this is that it takes the information directly from the IRS, your tax information, and imports it into the FAFSA form. This is the way to go. It makes sure that the information is correct, and then it really lowers the chances of the student getting selected for the verification process by the federal government. When that happens, then the schools need to collect additional information from the students and parents. But typically, if you use the data retrieval tool, you're less likely to be chosen for verification. Not all the time, people still get selected, but it just reduces the amount of information that you would potentially have to provide the school if you are selected. You're able to use this starting October 1st, 2020 for the 2021-22 FAFSA. As it happens, the FAFSA itself also opens up on October 1st, 2020. So if you're a current junior, you will start to be able to do this on October 1st, 2020. Again, you should be using the retrieval tool when completing the FAFSA. One thing to note is that you won't be able to see what the amounts are that are transferred over from the IRS into the FAFSA due to security reasons. You just kind of have to trust that it transferred over all the information. It does, trust me, we on the financial aid side, we get to see everything in order to be able to package you, but the students and parents aren't able to see what was actually transferred over. And it'll kind of be like grayed out. So just keep that in mind, it did work. File the FAFSA, which I would give between 45 minutes or so if it's your first time ever completing a FAFSA. If you've done it before, maybe you only need 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But if you've never done it before, kind of give yourself 45 minutes or so to complete it, fill it out, go through all the questions. There's a lot of skip logic involved, so it doesn't take as long as it used to because there's just so many things that are in place already to kind of keep it moving. But after you complete it, you as a student would actually be emailed. This is actually a copy, an old copy of the student aid acknowledgement or the SAR report that students are mailed These days, unless you have an invalid email address on file that you provided, you will be getting an emailed version of this. If you don't have an email address on file or it's invalid for some reason, you'll be sent a paper one, but it just takes a little bit longer to get to you. And what this does is that actually kind of just lists all the information that you put on there, so to make sure that it's accurate. A couple of things to note on this, whether it's a paper version or whether you get in an email, is to keep note of the data release number, the DRN. This 4-digit number, that is what allows other schools to potentially look at your FAFSA if you forgot to put them on there. And then also the expected family contribution. More detail, but this number right here is what tells you what your EFC is from, and it stays the same from school to school. Also, if you have a good, it means that there's something, a flag on your FAFSA that you might probably have to provide additional information to the school on. So some things to keep track of as you go through the process. So what is the expected family contribution, or EFC? You're going to hear this a lot throughout your college search. We reference it a lot as you're filing the FAFSA. Oh, I should have also mentioned before that in order to file the FAFSA, you do have to be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen, so like a permanent resident, something along those lines. Unfortunately, if you don't meet those criteria, then you are unable to file the FAFSA form. So the EFC, it is the amount that can be reasonably be expected, the family can be reasonably be expected to contribute towards the college education. Stays the same regardless of college. So whether you're going to a state school or a private school, the EFC stays the same. And it's pretty much just a standard way that the schools are able to put together financial aid packages for all their students. It's two components, the parent contribution and the student contribution. So all that information you put in before, the income, the assets, the number in college, all those things, all those combine to go through the formula that the federal government created, and that is what creates your EFC. So after the FAFSA, first off, you can list up to 10 schools on the FAFSA form. If you need to put more, that's definitely okay. What you have to do is you have to submit put your 10 schools, your top 10, submit the FAFSA through, wait about a week for it to process, and then go back in and make a correction. And then when you do that, you have to take some schools off and put some other schools on. So it's really important to keep track of what schools you're adding and deleting, so that you know if you have to make a correction down the line that you might have to add another school back on there. So, but you can list up to 10 at a time. Each school will electronically receive the FAFSA within 3 to 5 business days. Typically it's only 3, but sometimes things take a little bit longer around peak times. And then once the school receives your FAFSA, they're going to start putting together financial aid packages for you. So you're probably going to see a range of this when award letters are sent out. It could be as early as November, and then I put February on here for it to go through, but honestly, some schools I've seen maybe into even March and potentially April. Some of the state schools might hang on until April. So it just depends on the school, just depends on their process, but you'll see that wide range of when financial aid packages actually start going out. Here at Niagara, we try to send ours out right after we get back from the Christmas break. So early January is when we start sending out our financial aid packages. Also, just keep in mind that not every school sends out their packages the same way. Here at Niagara, we send out our first package, of course, is paper. It has all the information in it and goes out to the students, but some schools just solely do emails, email notifications into the students portal. So it's a good idea to kind of keep track of what the emails coming in and anything that the student might receive in the mail. So the types of financial aid that you might see in your financial aid package. So the first one, scholarships. This can be merit-based scholarships and need-based scholarships. The merit-based scholarships typically come from private schools, although some state schools are including those as well. These scholarships are primarily based upon what you have done in high school, or if you're a transfer student, what you have done at a previous college, your GPA, your high school average, your SAT or ACT scores. Those are the common things that the merit scholarships are based upon. There's also need-based scholarships, and what that means is that based upon your financial contribution from the FAFSA and the cost of attendance and the calculation that we use for that, you might be eligible for need-based aid. And we'll get to that more in a little bit. There's also grants, which again could be need-based, could be based upon something that you've done in high school, all those things. So grants and scholarships, those are free money. Those are things you don't have to pay back. So of course, those are the ones that you definitely want to make sure that you are applying for. Then we also have loans. So we have federal loans. These are through the federal government. Your application for those are technically through when you complete the FAFSA form. You have your subsidized, your unsubsidized. We'll get to those in a little bit more. We also have parent loans, and we also have private alternative loans. And then employment. This is typically like work study or maybe student employment on campus. You work 10 to 12 hours a week on campus. You can either earn a paycheck or you can have some of that paycheck go directly towards your account. So loans have to be paid back after graduation, and employment, you can use it towards your bill, but you're working in order to have that paid off. So just some of those things to keep in mind. So your sources of financial aid. The federal government is the largest source of financial aid that provides financial aid. States, they might. States have financial aid programs as well. Through New York State, we have our New York Tuition Assistance Program, or TAP, lots of acronyms in financial aid. And they also have merit-based scholarships as well. Institutions have scholarships. Niagara University has merit scholarships and our need-based scholarships that we award. Private sources, you know, Community Foundation of Greater Buffalo, churches, civic organizations, all those places that you can apply for potentially some of their scholarships. And then employers. Employers, you know, I know Wegmans has scholarships that students can apply for, and, you know, sometimes parents work for places that give some type of incentive for their students attending a college. So those are the main sources you're going to see when you look at your financial aid package, and the source and the places you can go to be able to find other sources of aid. Federal government, like I said, it's the largest source of financial aid. Primarily, the aid from the government is awarded based on financial need. So again, that calculation that schools do with the financial contribution from the FAFSA form determines, you know, kind of what aid you're eligible for. You must apply for this every single year. So you have to file the FAFSA form every single year. Don't fret. It is a renewal process for, you know, your sophomore, junior, and senior years. So you're not updating, you're not doing everything all over again. It is a little bit more easy to do in your following years. Federal aid programs that you will see, the Pell Grant, that's probably the largest one as far as grants go. Your financial contribution on your FAFSA does have to be below a certain number. This year, I believe it's below like $5,700, around there. And you would be eligible potentially up to about $6,200 or $6,300 per year. There's the Teach Grant. These are for students who are going into the education field. So these are for students who are going into the education field and potentially apply for those grants. There's the Opportunity Grant. We have a very small amount of the Opportunity Grant to award. So if you don't see it in your package, it's just because we don't have a lot to give out. Federal Work Study, this is a program, I mentioned it a little bit before, but what it is that you have a certain amount potentially put in your package, and then you can work on campus, mostly on campus in different offices, to be able to potentially put money, you know, towards your balance, or get a paycheck every couple weeks. Then there's the subsidized and unsubsidized loans. So these are loans, again, through the federal government. These are in the student's name. The subsidized means that the government is paying the interest on the loan while the student is in school. The unsubsidized means that they aren't, so interest is accruing. Right now, as of July 1st of this year, the interest rate is going to be the lowest it's been in a very long time, of course, with everything going on. It's going to be 2.75%. So it's, again, quite low that as compared to, you know, recent previous years. It does change every year on July 1st. So what it will be for 2021, we don't know yet, but right now it's going to be the 2.75% for both the subsidized and unsubsidized. And then the PLUS loan. So this is a federal loan, but it's actually in the parent's name. It's called the Parent Plus loan. And parents can decide to apply for this. and take out, if there's a remaining balance for a student and they need to be able to take this out, they can apply for that. Again, it's in the parent's name, but it is a federal loan. So those are the main federal programs you would see. Typically, you have to reside in the state and then be attending a school within that state in order to be eligible for these programs. That is true for New York State. So if you are attending, let's say Niagara, and you are a New York State resident, you can apply for these grants. If you live in New York State but now are going to be going out, to Pennsylvania somewhere, that grant does not follow you. So there are scholarships based upon the need, so based upon your FAFSA form and the information there and your adjusted gross income, and then also on merit. These are typically awarded during high school that they can use for college. It does use information from the FAFSA, and actually when you complete the FAFSA, after you hit submit, the very next screen will say, congratulations, you've completed the FAFSA. Would you like to transfer your data into your state application? I recommend saying yes. I know it'll take, maybe another 20 minutes or so to complete, but it does transfer all the information you already put in into your state application. If you don't do it at that time, it's okay, but you'll have to wait about a week for the FAFSA to process and the information to go over to New York State, and then you have to go directly to New York State's website and apply there. So it just kind of, extends the process a little bit. So again, I recommend completing it at that time. The deadlines vary by state. In New York State, it's, technically you have all the way through the end of the year, but I always suggest doing it by the time school starts. So at institutions like NU, we can award either merit-based or need-based grants and scholarships. At NU, currently, our merits for the 2020-21 year are the trustee scholarship at $23,000, the presidential at $20,000, the Dean's Dean's Award at $16,000, the Achievement Grant at $14,000, or the NU Grant at $10,000. So you only get one of those based upon your high school GPA, the average SATs or ACTs. However you submit, we are test optional, so you don't have to submit SAT or ACT scores. Just know that if you do go the test optional route, the highest scholarship you can get is the presidential at $20,000. In order to be eligible for the trustees at $23,000, you do have to submit your test scores. And if there's any transfers out there, we also have transfer scholarships as well, and those currently range from $10,000 to $17,000 per year, and those are based upon your GPA from your previous school. So if you have any questions on about those specific scholarships, I do encourage you to ask questions of our admissions team while they're on the call, so they can help answer any more of those questions. At NU, we also have need-based aid through us. The main one, we have lots of different funds, but the main one that you'll see is called the Montego Grant. Again, this is the amount that you're awarded is based upon the FAFSA form and the information we receive from them. And then also at Niagara specifically, we have our very own Scholarship Opportunity Search, or SOS. You'll hear that frequently, the SOS portal. So this is for any accepted student. They will have access to view and apply to over 200 of our endowed or current use scholarships. Some of them are very, very specific. You have to go to a specific church or a specific high school or be from a specific county in New York State. Going for different majors. So there's a lot of things that we just wouldn't know that students kind of have to raise their hand and identify themselves on. So this does open up January 1st of each year for the upcoming year. So January 1st of 2021, you'll be able to go ahead, if you're an accepted student for the fall, you'll be able to go ahead and apply, search and apply for those scholarships. We do start awarding that typically between April and August. It's a little backed up this year just with everything going on, so we're just kind of getting to awarding them for this year. But it's a great opportunity to see if you're eligible for any additional scholarships above and beyond potentially what we've already awarded you. And my last slide before we kind of get to the questions are private sources, also employers. So in addition to the scholarships that the state, the government, the institution provide, there's lots of businesses and organizations out there that do have scholarships for students going to college. One that I always like to mention is the Community Foundation of Greater Buffalo. There's also one for Syracuse and I believe for Rochester, that, you know, at least in Buffalo, I've seen them award up to $6,000, you know, to a student per year. So it's definitely something that you need to look into. Students have to take that initiative to kind of go out and look for them. Check with your guidance counselor at high school. I know, you know, when things start up again, you can contact them. They should have a list of ones, some of them that are probably specific to your individual school. So make sure that you are, you know, starting to research those early. Some companies, as I stated earlier, might have scholarships available for either their employers like Wegmans, or potentially for their children, their employees' children. So just some things to kind of think about. I really do recommend starting that process in about January. A lot of private scholarship deadlines are usually March or April. Great. So I know that was a ton of information, kind of just hit the highlights. So if anybody has any specific questions, we can definitely go to those. Just for reference, again, our email, if you think of anything else, is fao@niagara.edu, and our phone number is 716-286-8686. All right, I am going to look at the questions. I haven't been able to look at them. Hang on. Sorry, could be either one. Ooh. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Katie, I think one of the questions was if a person is filing their FAFSA and they run into a snafu and they're not sure how to answer it, is that a question they can call and ask your office, you know, which way?
Yeah, so good question. So if you are, you know, going through and completing the FAFSA and you kind of run into something tricky, there are a lot of help things on the FAFSA. You just kind of hover over it, and you know, each question is pretty detailed as far as what they're looking for if you kind of just detail into it. So I suggest doing that first. If that still doesn't work and it's still confusing, definitely give our office a call. You can save your FAFSA application. You just kind of have to create like a password, I believe, to go back into it. You can give our office a call and we'll be able to assist you with that. All right, and then someone had a question. If a student is awarded a private scholarship, will that take away from their need-based chances? So we, at least at Niagara, we try our very best to maintain what your current package already is, and try to add that scholarship on top of it. A lot of it will depend upon the wording of the scholarship that you receive. Some things might say it's for tuition only. And if that's the case, and if you already have, you know, other aid that's already at tuition, then you might not be able to use that. But if a scholarship says that it can be used for room and board, other educational expenses, those are the key words that kind of let us be able to use it for, you know, above and beyond just tuition. Again, so Niagara does try our best to not have to reduce any other aid, but sometimes it does happen. Typically, it's not so much with the grants you've already been awarded. It might be that you're no longer eligible for the work-study program, or we might have to move some of your subsidized loan into an unsubsidized loan. So those are the main things that we try to do first before we have to reduce any grants or scholarships. And your merit would never be reduced. Your merit stays at whatever it is. Did I miss any other questions?
One of the questions was, how much does your parents' savings and assets count against qualifying for loans and grants?
Great question. It's actually kind of complicated. For students, the assets section, it's only about 20% of whatever the assets are count towards their contribution. For parents, it's more complicated because it depends on the age of the parent, if they even hit the asset threshold at all. So that's a little bit more. There's no, unfortunately, set answer for that. You can, I believe they still have like like a FAFSA estimator if you wanted to kind of go in and put in what your, you know, assets are. You know, you kind of do like a mini pre-FAFSA, and it will give you an idea of what your financial contribution would be. So you can kind of play around with it a little bit, do different examples.
And one of the things I want to mention when we talked a little bit before about SATs and ACTs, there are two majors that do require SATs or ACTs. And that would basically be if you're a nursing student, you must submit those. And the same as if you're a biology major, we would need to have those in there. So everyone else can be test optional. But like Katie said, if you're a strong academic student, you're going to want to submit those so to see if you qualify for the TAP scholarship.
Yeah. There's also a question, will this be available, their audio cut out, will this be available some another way? We are recording it, right, Mark? So this will be, I don't know exactly where it goes. I'm sorry, it goes somewhere on the admissions page?
Right.
Goes to the cloud. So Mike Friedman will get it, and then Mike will, yeah, post it out, post it, email it, all sorts of things. So it'll be available for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think all the attendees or everyone who signed up probably gets an emailed a copy of it. So, let's see. Do you have any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
As I was doing my introductions, I failed to mention Mark Stewart's title, so I wanted to make sure everybody knows Mark is here and he's our Assistant Director for Canadian Admissions and Recruitment. So if there's any Canadians in the audience and you have specific questions, Mark is your man.
So I just got another question asking about, if your parents were recently divorced after 2019, when, the tax information that we need it for, would they still fill out the 2019 tax information when the parents were together? That is a really great question because it, gets a little confusing. So when you file the FAFSA, as of the date you file the FAFSA, if your parents are no longer together, you would only report the information for the parent you live with more than 50% of the year with. But I do understand that when, it's asking for the tax information, and they filed married filing joint potentially, what you would do, you would still say that they filed married filing joint, but when it asks for the individual income, you would only report whichever parent you're with. So you would kind of have to do some subtraction of the other parent that you're not reporting. I hope that makes sense. It can get a little confusing. Feel free to reach out to my office, as you run into that issue. Any other questions anybody can think of?
If there's no other questions, that can conclude our presentation in tonight's session. Know that we're around if you need us. Katie's information was up on the screen. You can definitely connect with the admissions office anytime. We hope that you stay happy and healthy during these wonderful COVID-19 times. We can't wait till we're back on campus, and hopefully for those of you who are my rising seniors or juniors, you'll come and visit us once we're able to do that. But know that we do have virtual visits online, so if that's something you wish to do, you can go to the admissions office webpage, webpage, and go to admissions, and there's a way of signing up to get a more complete understanding of the admissions process, so feel free to do that as well. So thank you, Katie. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, everybody, for attending.
Have a good night, everybody.